All right, beginner guitarists, let's talk chords. So there are 7 chords you are responsible for knowing, and so I'm not going to talk about the pieces that go along with those chords. I just want to talk about the chords themselves. To talk about chords, we first have to remember a few things. That when you go to read a chord chart that looks like this, it's like the chord chart can be put onto the guitar like this. So the nut is the dark black line at the top. All of the horizontal lines going this way are frets, and all of these vertical lines here are strings. So this line is the high E, and this line over here is the low E. And then when I look at a chord chart, so I'm going to look at the A right here, you can see there's a number 1, 2, 3. You can see they're all on the 2nd fret. You can see that there are some O's and X's up here. And that indicates what strings to play and not play. So I'm hoping you have this in front of you as I talk about it. I'm going to go through these chords very quickly. So playing the A chord, the standard way to play that A chord is to take your first index finger and put it onto the 2nd fret onto the D string, the 4th string. You take your middle I love you finger and you put it right underneath onto the G string, and you take your ring finger and you put it underneath that, also on the 2nd fret, on the B string. And I'm really only meant to play the first 5 strings, so I'm not meant to play the low E string, and we'll get into that later. And that's that sound of an A chord. If you hear this when you play, that means you're not pressing hard enough. If you hear this, you hear buzzing, that means you're pressing half enough but not quite enough. What you want to hear is every single note can ring out. Now, if you've got wide fingers like I do, sometimes you want to play that A chord. I use 2 fingers and I press all 3 strings with 2 fingers. So the D string, the G string, and the B string are all covered with my 2 fingers. That's how I play A. The standard way is to play it with these 3 fingers. Pretty straightforward stuff. The C chord, it's almost like the C chord makes a little bit of a staircase. It's not an exact staircase, but this is kind of what it looks like. Index finger is on the B string, 1st fret. Middle finger is on the 2nd fret on the D string, and my ring finger is on the 3rd fret of the A string. And I'm going to only hit, again, just these 5 strings like this. Now I'm going to turn this around right here so you can see my wrist. So when I play an A chord, it kind of looks like this. My wrist is kind of perpendicular to the fretboard in a way. But when I play a C chord, my wrist goes like this. So now my wrist kind of becomes a little more parallel with the fretboard. Sometimes you have to vary your wrist position. And you look at my elbow in the background there in order to achieve all of the notes of the chord. So there's a 5 string, just these 5 to make the C chord. The D chord is, I'm going to take my index pointer finger, I'm going to put it onto the 3rd string, the G string. I'm going to take my ring finger and put it onto the 3rd fret of the 2nd B string. And I'm going to take my middle I love you finger and tuck it underneath my index finger, also on the 2nd fret, on the high E string. And I'm just going to try and hit 4 strings here. And that's that D. So you might be tempted to try and play your D chord like this or some weird way, but really if you look at the numbers on the chord chart, for the most part follow those numbers with your fingers. Finger number 1, finger number 2, finger number 3. It's really the most ergonomic way to play the chords, and it makes it easier to transition between chords if you're playing them properly. So that's the D chord. My E chord looks like this. I take my index pointer finger and I put it onto the 1st fret of the G string. I take my middle finger and I put it all the way up here on the 5th fret, the 2nd fret, 5th string, and I take my ring finger and tuck it underneath, also on the 2nd fret, but the 4th string. And this is all of the strings kind of chord, E. And again, you should be able to go down slowly and hear all the strings ring out instead of this. That's not a sound. Sometimes you might hear all of the strings for where your fingers are, so I'll hear this, but I don't hear the bottom strings. And that might be because, you see right here, my finger underneath, there's a bit of space there. If you're trying to play the chords and you're holding the guitar like a baseball bat, you're going to end up muting some of the bottom strings with the insides of your hand. So we try and move your hand down so that you can create some space in there. Look at that space right in there. And that way I don't end up muting the bottom strings as well. Okay, the G chord, there's a couple ways to play it. On the chord chart, they tell you to use your second, third, and fourth fingers, but I'm going to show you instead how to play it with your first, second, and third. It's the same idea. I'm going to take my first finger and put it onto the second fret, fifth string. I'm going to take my middle I love you finger and put it onto the third fret, the lowest E string. And I'm going to take my ring finger and keep it on the third fret, but up to the highest E string. The chord diagram tells you to play it as though you don't have a first finger, so it looks like this. And there's nothing wrong with playing it either way. Most beginners want to learn the G chord like this. Okay, there were only 2 chords to go, and then I have to talk to you about shapes and transitions. The next chord is called the A minor chord. Do you remember the E chord? It looked like this. We'll take that exact hand position and move it down 1 string. Everything down 1 string. And that's A minor. My index pointer finger is on the B string of the first fret. My middle I love you finger is on the second fret, 4th string, the D string. And my ring finger is on the 3rd string, the G string. And it looks visually, this is A minor, E. A minor, E. So it looks it's identical looking, it's just down a string. And when I play the A minor, I'm going to try and only hit 5 strings. And then my last chord was the E minor. So if I play an E like this, and I take my index pointer finger off, that's E minor. So the way I'm playing E minor right now is I'm using my middle I love you finger on the 2nd fret, 5th A string. My ring finger is on the 2nd fret, 4th D string, and that's it. You can also play it with your first 2 fingers. It just looks like this. It's the same chord, but instead of playing it with my middle and ring finger, I'm just playing it with my index and pointer finger. Or my index and middle finger, sorry. Okay, so there were 7 chords. A, C, D, E, G, A minor, E minor. 2 things. First of all, look at the shapes and try and associate the shape with the chord and kind of build a connection here. Like I look at that C chord and I kind of think of a staircase. I look at the D chord and I kind of think of a triangle. When you look at it, it's kind of like a triangle between my 3 fingers. This doesn't look like much of a triangle, but on paper, it does. When I think of the E and the A minor as kind of cousins, they look the same. I think of that E minor, so similar to the E. And the G, to me, kind of looks like a waterfall in a way. It kind of comes up and goes straight down. Up, straight down. And that A is just like a big old block. Again, I play it with 2 fingers. You can probably play it with 3. Okay, so last thing very quickly. We're getting close to the 10-minute mark, which is how long I want these to be. Of these fingers, this is your smartest finger. Always try and get this finger down first, and then the other fingers will follow, especially if you've made a connection with the shape. Like I think about that G chord and I get that waterfall. Once my first finger is in position, the other ones just drop in. I think about the C chord and the other fingers drop in. A minor, E. Once this finger is in position, the other ones kind of follow. In terms of practice, make up a random order of those 7 chords. See if you can memorize them. I'm going to make up one right now. And I'm going to strum 4 times on each. D, G, A minor, C, A minor, and E. And I can't remember if I did D, so I'll do that now. I'm just going between those chords to try and practice them. All right, 7 chords. For the piece that you play, you need to know whatever chords you are playing for that piece, but you need to be able to show me all 7 chords. If you have any questions, please come and ask me. All right, have a great day.